Hey everyone, so in this video I'm going to talk about 3 more tips for mental practice for pianists and other musicians because I've made another video about this topic already. And on this channel I hope to share with you strategies, mindsets, methods, and so on of my own creation that I hope will help you in your piano playing and hopefully other things as well. And here again for mental practice, I'm referring to imagination of you playing your instrument as opposed to imagination of the sheet music. So the first thing I want to talk about is planning out fingering. And I advocate this for physical practice as well too. So when you plan out a good fingering, like here I wrote out fingering for this Scarlatti Sonata K531 for a student some time ago. This way you're always going to consistently use these fingers, such as 5-3-2-1-2-1. If you're a strings player, if you're a woodwind player, you might write bowings, you might write breath marks. So there may be other indications that you write in that help you to keep consistent. Because for physical practice, for instance, if you're playing the passage one time with 1-3-5, another time with 1-2-4, another time with 1-2-3, well, the body and mind become very confused about which coordination to actually record. And such it is with mental practice and pure conscious awareness as well too. So if I imagine myself playing with a certain fingering, and the next time I imagine another random fingering where I keep alternating between 2 or 3 different ones, that's going to confuse me when I go back to the instrument as well too, because I have several different memories going on in my mind. So probably my reaction is going to be, is it 1-2-4 or is it 1-2-3? And then that's going to cause me to have to make a very hasty decision in the moment. Another reason to plan out a good fingering before you start doing mental practice is that it's easier typically to choose a good fingering when you're actually at the instrument. So that's what I will typically do. Honestly, if I'm completely apart from the instrument, it's a completely new piece of music, I can still write out a pretty decent fingering. But to be completely honest, I still make even better decisions at the instrument. So I'd say there are many situations where I look, even if I'm away from the piano, and I think this is the only reasonable decision. But there are other ones that are a little more ambiguous. Maybe I want to get a particular sound. Maybe I want to, really see if a certain motion is going to serve me best at a certain speed. And at the instrument itself is still the easiest way to work that out. So before I go on a long trip or before I'll be away from the instrument for a while, I'll typically sit at the piano, plan out all of the fingering, the complete fingering for a given piece or whatever section I want to practice before I, leave the instrument and start doing lots and lots of mental practice. The second thing that I want to talk about is, I'd say, keeping track of your work. So within my logical methodology for physical practice, there's a way that I keep track of sections that I've practiced so far. And I won't go into this very deeply in this video because otherwise it'll end up pretty off topic. But for instance, for physical practice, here I wrote a 4 within these curly brackets. This means that I've played 4 measures, 1, 2, 3, 4, plus the next vertical or plus the next chord solidly up to a certain quality. And the question of how does this fit into my larger methodology? What is quality? You can explore some other videos on my channel to find that out. But I just want to say that for mental practice, and I've said this in a few other videos, I will also keep track in terms of notation much of the time. So for instance, if I write 1 within these little angle brackets, it means I've accurately imagined from here to here, both hands. If I write a 1 over here, it means that I've done 1 measure plus the next chord or the next vertical, both hands. And for separate hands, sometimes I like to do this. I'll just put 2 angle brackets. This would mean right hand alone, I played from here to there. Left hand alone, 1 measure plus the next beat. And so this is just a matter of keeping track of our work. And the reason we want to do this is the same as for physical practice. So as we get into higher levels of strategy, let's say that playing an 8-measure set, which would be 8 measures plus the following vertical, that's very difficult for me physically to play, right? So I might start with maybe half-measure sets, like half-measure fragments or so, and then I use spaced repetition, I move on, I come back, And then I have to relearn the passages, and I also put them together into one measure sets, one measure plus the following beat. And because I've forgotten and now I have to relearn the passage based on the learning science, it's going to start to stick better in my head. The component halves, I know them well enough such that I can link them into a one, and then I forget and then relearn through spacing, and then I have create two measure sets from the ones, and I create four measure sets from the twos. So each time that I forget and relearn, I'm able to basically double these given sections or sets in size. And what I just talked through is this little thought experiment of physically linking something together. But believe it or not, you can do the exact same thing purely mentally. And I have this other video that came out, I believe, last week. That's just like 4 tips for mental practice. If you want to know how to get started, you can search for that 4 tips for mental practice, David Chang, or you can find it on the channel. But suffice to say that if you start to get to a certain point with mental practice, you can do everything that I just said in terms of that fairly elaborate strategy, but just purely mentally. And so this way, if you keep track using those mental practice markers that I just wrote, it just allows you to remember like which parts did I actually accurately imagine. So for instance, at the very beginning of whatever piece you're currently working on, you might be able to imagine yourself at least just playing the first few notes in one of the hands, right? So that's your starting point. And as you continue mentally practicing, you're probably going to reach the point where you can do slightly larger sections with each of the separate hands. And then you go to sleep, you get up the next day, your memories are consolidating and everything. And you'll probably reach the point where you can do very small sections, both hands. And then you'll probably reach the point where you can do small sections, both hands, and then medium sections, both hands, etc. And all of this is mentally. And so if you had ones, like for instance, I've been talking for a little while. Previously, I wrote these ones here. So it could be that you come back a few hours later and you find that with strategy, you're able to link these ones mentally into a 2. So previously, you were able to imagine only from there to there, and then only from there to there, without things getting fuzzy or things getting confusing. But now that you've allowed some time to pass, sure, you had to relearn these measures, but then you were actually able to link them together. You can now imagine from here all the way to there, and now you've kept track of your work. And that might not seem to be strictly necessary at this point, because that's a very simple example. But if you're working through like 50 measures, for instance, it will be pretty difficult to keep track of where you mentally practiced one measure sets, where you mentally practiced 2s, 4s, where you practice halves. So I strongly advocate using this simple notational system that I've developed. And then finally, I guess these are slightly more elaborate tips than I originally intended, but that's okay. Hopefully you like detail-oriented stuff like I do. And so the third tip that I would say would be to treat mental practice the same as physical practice. Now, actually, and I don't disagree with this, I've seen some people talk about imagining, I don't know, even the feeling of, like, for instance, if I'm performing in a real situation, I'm probably dressed even a bit nicer than this, and I'm imagining the exact feeling of the clothes and the exact feeling of the stage, and like the atmosphere of the hall and everything. I don't disagree with this. I think it's the same if people are giving speeches or something, things that are not exclusive to music. If you want to imagine, like, as closely as possible the exact conditions of the real performance, whether it's formal like that or it's a performance for your close friend, it's a performance for your mom or whoever, by all means do that. I think it's great to imagine yourself completely relaxed, great to imagine yourself with completely free shoulders, arms, elbows, wrists, fingers, etc. So you can definitely do that. But when I'm saying treat mental practice the same as physical practice, here I'm actually referencing strategy. So you can do all those other things that I just said, but here I'm saying strategy within mental practice should not be, it's not subservient. It shouldn't be inferior to your strategy in physical practice. And if you've looked through much of the channel, you'll find that I have ideas in terms of, adding in reverse, alternation and cycling, spaced repetition, the idea of sets that I just said, right? One measure plus the following note, how to add in reverse using both hand sets, how to transition from separate hands to both hand sets, right? So there's all these different ideas that we layer or stack on top of each other. And people often talk about mental practice as like this very blanket term. Like they'll just say, oh yeah, you should do mental practice. I don't do so much mental practice myself, but I hear that it's a good idea, so I think that you should do it. And I think it's silly to talk about mental practice so generally, just the same way that it would be silly for me to say, well, you should just do more physical practice. I hear that's a good idea. So I think I would just encourage you to just do physical practice in general. I think that's a good start. But then what if the mental practice is fuzzy? What if it's unclear? What if it's not going well, right? So here we should have strategies that are every bit as specific as the physical ones. And what I hope to do through some of these videos is, maybe because physically is typically an easier place for most people to start, maybe we can say first, let's be much more specific about strategies to physically practice at the piano. But actually, mentally, we can be every bit as specific, every bit as granular. And believe it or not, my logical methodology, and I might have said this in another video, like with the notational system and so on, it was originally developed for mental practice just because I wanted there to be material out there that was much more, like for instance, if you have a specific passage and it's 4 measures long or 8 measures long and it's particularly difficult to picture, it should be context specific. Like there are so many particular scenarios where just the idea of adding in reverse doesn't work, for instance. So I wanted much more detailed, much more elaborate strategy that can allow you to solve any situation that comes up. So all that to say, for instance, if you are physically practicing, let's say this passage, like from here to here, and you want to play this both hands, and let's assume that you're a beginner and that this is very difficult for you. So now bear with me as I talk through this. Physically, the first thing I might have you do is play separate hand 1 measure sets. So for instance, you might do right hand alone from here to here, right? Just play that. Maybe that's not too difficult. And even within this, you could like play from here to here, then you could do from here to here, right? So you could break this down further. And what would happen is you would end up playing the right hand alone, hopefully from memory, just this little area. And you can do the same from here to here. You can do the same, give me 1 second, from here to here. And then you can finally do the same from here to here. So each of these would be a 1 measure right hand set because it's 1 measure plus the following beat. And the same with the left hand as well. I can do left hand from here to there, left hand from here to there, left hand from here to there, left hand from here to there. And then I would mark 1s here. I won't right now just for sake of time, right? And then I can leave the piano, come back, and then I may be wanting to link these into 2 measure sets possibly. So I might want to play right hand alone from here all the way to there. And then after that, I could play right hand alone all the way from there to there. And then I can play left hand alone from here to here. Then I can play left hand alone from here to here, right? And in order to do this, I might be adding in reverse. For instance, I might play left hand here to here, then here to here, then here to here, and then that results in me being able to play from there to there, right? Then I take a break, come back the next day, and because I've done 2 measure separate hand sets, so I can play, right hand and left hand each independently from there to there, right hand and left hand each independently from there to there, that puts me in a good position. I'm probably coordinated enough and I probably know this material well enough that I can do both hand 1 measure sets now. So I can do like both hands from here to here. And this might involve me playing right hand alone, then left hand alone, and then both. And then the next measure, it might be I play right hand alone and then left hand alone and then both. So the result each time is that I'm able to play both hands from a beginning point to an end point. And then from here to here, and then from here to there, and then from here to there. And then I take a break, come back later. Now maybe I want to play both hands from there to there. Now the strategy to play both hands from here to here, it might be that I want to play right hand alone from here to here, left hand alone from here to here, and then from here to here. And then I can play both hands here to here. Then I can play right hand alone here to here, and then left hand alone here to here, and then both hands all the way through. And if it doesn't go well, I go back to the beginning of that 6-step or so process And the result is that I can play a 2-measure set, which is both hands from here to there. In case you're wondering why I didn't just do that from the start, it's because I wasn't good enough at this passage yet. So I had to go through all those prerequisite steps. I wanted to go through the forgetting and then relearning because, again, the learning science shows us that we will retain things much better, and the component elements became strong enough such that we could link them together. And then the same with this as well. I could go through a process just as elaborate to solve from here to here as I explained from there to there. So now I have two measure sets. I move on, come back the next day, and now maybe I want to do a 4-measure set from there all the way to there. And here it may be, even though I already did the 2-measure sets, I might still need to add in reverse separate than both for each step. I might do like right and then left and then both, 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 and go back through that entire 12-step process. If I didn't get the result that I was looking for, I'll go back to the ends rather than continuously play from the beginnings, because then the endings will be weak. Now, so all of that was to explain how I might physically work things out at the piano. If you followed the channel for a while, you might have seen some of this strategy before. So here's the thing. You can do everything that I just said if you were patient enough to listen to that whole explanation mentally. You don't even need the instrument at all. And even though that took a while to explain, I hope you understand what I mean when I say you want to treat the mental practice as physical practice. So if I'm on vacation or I'm on a trip or something, literally I can do every single step that I just told you, the adding in reverse, the doing separate hands first, the transitioning from separate to both hands, the expanding from 1-measure sets to 2-measure sets, like the adding in reverse separate than both for each step as I, solved both hand sets. For instance, all of that can be done mentally. And it's especially easy because I've already written out the complete fingering, and also because I have markings, even though I didn't even literally write them during my explanation, to keep track of the work that I've done so far. So, okay, I'll be honest with you guys, when I decided to do these 3 tips here, I wasn't expecting this to turn into a really long video, but I feel like in the moment, that level of detail, it was necessary to at least give you some inkling of the possibilities, because that's part of the struggle. I think a lot of the time, everybody has limited time, and so maybe we just want some like quick and easy tips. Here are some more elaborate tips so that you can really consider the different possibilities. So hope you found this helpful, interesting. If you have questions about this, further questions about either mental practice or even any of the strategies that I talked about, let me know in the comments below. Please like and subscribe, and looking forward to the next one.